So you want to be DM, either by choice or because nobody else is going to run it. What do you do? What do you need? Well, I'm here to help show you how to be a DM, how to run games, and how to get started. And hopefully you stick around. Today, I'm going to talk about what you actually need to run a game. And if we're going to be honest, it's not much. I'd say the biggest thing that you need is the willpower and audacity to just say, all right, I'm going to run a game. I feel like that's the thing that gets most people to stop or to never try, is that they're too nervous to make mistakes in front of their friends. I mean, I've been running games for 6, almost 7 years now. I make plenty of mistakes. But in the beginning, I was nervous to make them. And I think that was one of the biggest hurdles that I had to get over in order to run games. But if we're going to get past that, what are the things we actually need to run a game? Not much, actually. So you've got 2 options. 2. When it comes to running a game. You can buy a kit. You can buy a starter set, and you can find these at most big box stores. And they're going to have pretty much everything that you need to run a game. You're going to have a starter adventure. You're going to have your basic rule set and dice and character sheets and all of those things ready to go. And it's not a bad choice. I actually ran the Lost Mines of Phandelver. That was the first campaign I ever ran, and I found it to be pretty simple and straightforward. As someone who'd played a lot of D&D and not really run it before, it wasn't that hard of a jump to make because of how well this was written out and how easy it was. And the thing that's nice about Lost Mines of Phandelver now, it's free. It's no longer their starter adventure. I believe they've moved on to another setting now. And so this is free. I think you can find it on D&D Beyond. Now, say you don't want to buy the box set because you don't want to make that $30 investment. Okay, cool. How can we do it for less? So I said before, Lost Mines of Phandelver is free. Now, if you don't want to run that, say you want to run something else, there are some really great resources like the Dungeon Masters Guild and Drive Through RPG, along with Reddit and D&D Beyond. All of these are going to have different resources where you can find free, pay what you want, or low-cost pre-written games that you can run. Now, can you homebrew? Totally. You can totally homebrew. But I find that homebrewing is a little more work, and it's not as easy when you're not sure how to run a game. Now, the first time I ever DM'd, yes, it was homebrewed. It was a one-shot, though. If you're looking at running a campaign, I don't think I would homebrew to start. Maybe you can, and I'm sure plenty of people had. But for me, as a neurotypical person, I needed some rules first. I needed to have somebody kind of hold my hand before I was ready to start running on my own. And that's why I really liked running the Lost Mines of Phandelver, because it does kind of hold your hand. It guides you through the process in a way that is simple and easy to understand, and you're not having to worry about setting your different DCs and creating your encounters and all of the NPCs. It's done for you. Now, just because it's a pre-written campaign does not mean that you should run it. Do not run Curse of Strahd, Tomb of Annihilation as your first campaigns as a DM. Can you? Sure. Sure you can. Should you? No. Those games are much more complex, where they're relying on the fact that you already have the base knowledge of how to run the game. I'm currently running Curse of Strahd for my friends now, and I'll tell you, I would never be able to handle running it who I was back when I started running the game. I have a lot more knowledge now, and it's a lot of fun, but I wouldn't have liked it then. So we know what we're running now, okay? We've got something to run, but we need rules, right? Now, you could just go out and buy a DMG, which, I mean, if you're going to run games long time, I would recommend getting. But again, I didn't have a DMG when I started running games. Again, we're talking about the least expensive way to start playing. There are so many incredible free resources. Matt Colville, his series actually taught me how to run games. And yes, it's a little old, but man, it is gold. His series on YouTube. I'll link it. It is incredible, and it was a free resource that taught me how to run games. Now, if you don't want to watch something on the Red Button app, TikTok, D&D Beyond, Reddit, so many different places will have information for you of setting up encounters, running things, NPCs. It's great. The thing that is nice about having your DMG is it has tables and things for making NPCs, for your random loot, for towns, for encounters. It has everything in one nice little spot. But again, we're talking about just getting started here. You don't need it to start running a game. And if somebody says you do, they're wrong. They're so wrong. So what's next? Now, this one is, I guess, a hot take. I like using screens. Now, some people don't like using D&D screens or DM screens because they feel like, it blocks them off from seeing everybody. Me? I just think it's really pretty, okay? But I just use it because I like to prep before we start playing. That means I want to have my mini set up. I want to have my computer open with my notes, my physical notes ready to go, and monsters and things ready. It's not just that I don't want the players to see my rolls. I just don't want them to see my prep area. Now, you can get a screen, okay? They're fine, they're pretty, and they do have information inside of them, but I don't really use it. Now, it's got like all the conditions, which is really helpful when you're first starting out. But again, we're talking about things that you absolutely need. You can use books, you can use cardboard. You don't have to buy a screen to play, and you don't even have to use a screen. I just like using one. So technically, that's all you need. 5e is supposed to be an easy enough game that we can use Theater of the Mind. And I've played Theater of the Mind. Personally, I don't like it. I don't. I have ADHD, and a lot of my friends are either also neurodivergent or just have attention issues. And it's hard to pay attention when you're trying to create everything inside of your mind. I really prefer having the map when the encounter is ready to go so I can see. And the other thing that's really cool is that you can be tactical. It's way easier to be tactical when you can physically see what's going on around you versus trying to keep track of how far these are and how many monsters there are. It can be really overwhelming for you as a DM and for your players. So I really think maps are the way to go. So what is the cheapest way to have a map? Well, there are a couple options. So if you happen to have a spare TV or monitor lying around, it's free to you because you already own it. Put it down on your table, hook it up to your computer, and throw on a map. You can find a lot of great maps on Patreon. Even people that have paid Patreons will usually have some free maps in there. You can go on Reddit. You can also go to 2 Minute Tabletop. They have wonderful resources for your free maps. Even YouTube, if you're using your TV, YouTube has living maps. It's so cool. So if you have that, there you go. But say you don't have a spare TV. Not everybody does. What do? Well, do you have wrapping paper? Most wrapping paper has a grid on the back. And it just so happens that that grid is 1 by 1. And that's what most maps and grids are made out of, 1 by 1 squares. If you don't have wrapping paper, you can go over to your local $1.25 tree and grab some. Now, the cons of using wrapping paper are that it's really thin and it can tear easily, and it's usually one-time use only. So there is going to be a lot of waste. So if we're looking to have something with a little less waste, we get reusable maps. Now, you can find these pretty inexpensively. Mine is one that came in a book, so it folds up. A lot of them are also like tubes and roll up. and they're dry erase. So once you're good to go, you draw your map out, you use your dry erase markers, mark everything, and you're done. Again, we can go free, we can go cheap, a little bit nicer. The other option, which is a little more techy, is if you have a projector. You can put your projector up and project right onto your table, and that's what I personally do. I use my projector and I use 2 pieces of poster board taped together for a nice white bright surface for my players, and we can see everything right there. Works out really nicely. But again, not everybody has a projector. So we've got our map. But how do we mark the map? Now, if we're using a dry erase board, just use our dry erase markers. Now that can get kind of tedious though, because you have to keep erasing and moving. But again, you can. Or if you're using a map, you can use apps like Roll20 and just put the map right then and there and move the tokens around. But now you're putting a lot of work on you as the DM to move the tokens. So what else can we do? Well, one of the easier ways is if you are a dice goblin like me, use your dice. You can use different style dice to represent your different players, or use like all D4s, and those are all your monsters, and then your players are D6s. But say you're not a dice goblin. Maybe everybody at the table only has a singular set of dice, for each player. What do we do? Candy. Most people will have candy and snacks at their games, and most people will have Sour Patch Kids, gummy bears, something. It is really fun when the DM gets to say, how do you want to do this? And then you get to eat it after you've taken care of your monster. But again, that's a one-time use only thing, because you eat said candy and then candy is gone. So sad. So what do I use in my games? I use these. Now, these go by all sorts of different names. I'm going to look it over here. They can go by blank game board markers or game card stands. Now, what I like about these is that there are different colors. So we've got, the whole range of colors that you can use to mark your bases. And then you have your dry erase. Oh, it's upside down. Your dry erase. So you can put the names of your characters. Barnabas is my husband's bard. So we just set them down and you are good to go. Again, this is like $12 on Amazon. And I'll link these for you if you want to get them. Another option is meeples. Meeples are little wooden characters, and they come, I think you get like a pack of 100 of them for less than $10. All sorts of different colors in your Roy G. Bev, and you can go that way. The downside with meeples is that you can't write on them, so you just have to know the color is this or that. So again, these, I love these. I love these so much, and they're so easy to use. And that's it. That's really all we need to run a game. That's all the supplies. When you break it down, it's really not that much. It just seems like a lot. And that's what we're going to touch on in my next episode, is how we get ready to run our game, how we set up, how we prep, and getting ready to run. So hopefully this helped some of you that wanted to DM but didn't know what you needed. And if not, maybe it was entertaining. So my friends, I will see you very soon. I love all of you. I'm so proud of you. And thank you so much. And I'll talk to you later.